What is the fuss about DeepSeek and why does it matter to HR? This has been such a fascinating piece of news to follow. If you've not been following this piece of news, DeepSeek was a large language AI, generative AI model released by a Chinese company I think a couple of weeks ago now. There's been so much news this year. I don't know. It feels like 6 months ago, but it probably was a couple of weeks ago. And it's caused a storm. It's caused a storm because people didn't realize that China were kind of working on something so sophisticated, but also it's been developed incredibly cheaply compared to some of the Gen AI systems that are being developed elsewhere, particularly in the US. So a massive reminder that things are never predictable. I think that's the first thing. That's the first thing to say. It's really funny because a lot of the chat about AI has been the amount of power that it uses and the expense of it, and so much so that a couple of weeks ago there was a big announcement that the US were kind of signing off a $500 billion budget to build nuclear power stations to power the AI of the future. And then this has come along and kind of turn things on its head because it's been made much more cheaply. And it's really interesting from that perspective, just in terms of sort of predicting the future, because, as I say, a lot of the commentary about AI has been, well, it can't develop further because it uses so much power. What are we gonna do? And that now potentially turned on its head. And it's a reminder that we can't predict the future based on the way that things are now. And I was trying to think of an example of this, and I thought about this the other day. So back in the sort of 70s and 80s, for those of you who can remember back that far, presuming you were born, we used to talk a lot about fossil fuels, oil and gas, and that they were going to run out. So, by this point in time, 2030, 2040, whatever, we'd have no more fossil fuels and we'd have no more energy. So that was why we talked about alternatives, wind power, wave power, all that kind of stuff. But technology moved on. Which meant they could find more oil and gas and also change the way that it's used. And now we talk about green energy as a way to stop burning oil and gas, and we don't want to find any more. So it just shows you that, the way that people have kind of predicted the future with AI isn't necessarily what's going to happen. And there's obviously big implications for this. The article is quite negative in some respects about them. There's obviously some very big implications for the large American technology firms who felt that they had a bit of a monopoly on this and were investing a huge amount of money. Also, this model is open source, so people can see how it was built. I've already heard that someone's already replicated it, and I suppose that there's another implication in terms of that really it potentially democratizes access to AI. Hopefully, it'll make things cheaper. It'll make things easier for people to use. Now, obviously, implications that this has come from China about security and privacy and all that kind of stuff. But the principle of it, I think is a fantastic thing. If we're going to save energy, save money, and have AI that we can move on and implement in more places. What does everyone else think? Robin, what are your thoughts on DeepSeek and its implications?
Yeah, I think two things.